welcome to the CDG BizCast. I'm your host, Christian Gonzalez, co-owner of Creativity Design Group, a digital marketing firm in Houston, Texas. In this episode, we're diving into a topic that can truly elevate any business event, live music. Whether you're a small business hosting a grand opening, a networking mixer, or a special celebration, the right music can transform your event from ordinary to unforgettable. Joining us today is the incredibly talented singer and songwriter Lexi Nguyen. Lexi's passion for music is all about spreading joy, and she knows firsthand how powerful live music can be in creating a memorable experience. She'll share insights on why live music is a game changer for business events and how choosing the right performers can make all the difference between an engaging, dynamic atmosphere and a forgettable, lackluster gathering. Lexi, we're excited to have you on BizCast today. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, thank you so much, Christian, for this opportunity. I'm just super grateful to be here, and I'm super pumped to talk about this very interesting topic that's not talked about very often within the event planning space, small business space, and the music space. So I'm excited to see how those would intersect today.
And it's certainly a pleasure to have you on today's episode. We're all excited to learn more about what you have to share with us. But before we talk about business events in general, first, please share with us more about you and your background.
Yeah, so I started to become passionate about singing when I was 4 years old. When I listened to the song We Belong Together by Mariah Carey, that really propelled my love for singing. However, I was really introverted and shy as a kid. And I'm from the Seattle area of Washington State. So there wasn't many opportunities where I could just play outside with the rain and the coldness going on. So that gave me the excuse to stay indoors and to sing along to my favorite pop songs on the radio. Then many years later, at age 18, I started to teach myself piano and composing melodies and writing my own songs. That led to my first single called Floating on Air. And I currently have 7 singles out at the age of 24. And I explore genres such as 80s pop, 90s R&B, a bit of rock, a bit of neo-soul, disco, funk. But I'm always willing to be that type of pop artist that just mixes a lot of genres together to constantly curate my own evolving, unique sound. And then I've also had the unique opportunity to be on Skylar Jett's podcast. He is a Grammy Award-winning artist who has worked with Celine Dion, Mariah Carey, and more. And I've also been featured on Glamour magazine. You Sang My Song when Tiffany from K-pop group Girls' Generation reacted to my singing cover, and that really helped grow my YouTube channel. And I've also sang the national anthem for my college graduation, and I've performed at the Seattle Center, and I'm just super excited to just keep making music and doing what I love. And I do also have experience in event planning when I worked in college for 3 years.
And that's quite a background. For many people, they discover their passion for their talent at a young age. What seems to be a hobby at the time usually blossoms into something much bigger. And now look where you are now. You're taking your talent, your musical talents, and also combining it with your skill sets of event planning. Please tell us more about event planning. What type of events do you specialize in? And how do you integrate live music into these events?
Yeah, so I worked for an organization called Campus Events Board. I was part of the team. I was the entertainment programmer for 2 years in that team. And the previous year, my first year of event planning, I was culture chair for Vietnamese Student Association. And for Culture Show, I co-planned it with the other culture chair. I had the great opportunity to lead singing committee, write a theme song for our culture show, and have it produced by my friend, Demi. It's called Being a Becoming. I also had the pleasure of creating acting scripts, making sure that the decorations represent our Vietnamese culture, our Vietnamese color from our flag. And when I was entertainment programmer for 2 years, I planned karaoke nights, movie nights. I planned an outdoor field day that amassed over 600 of my student peers as attendees. I also planned prom. I've planned Barbie Disco Night, which is based off of the amazing Barbie movie that was released just almost 2 years ago. And I've also done another prom, which was Enchanted Forest Prom. And that was a really fun one to do with a photo booth, mocktails for the students with butterfly garnishes to coordinate with the theme. And yeah, that's my experience.
That's very incredible. It sounds like that you have done quite a lot. And you basically went from hosting student events to making a full career out of this now.
Yeah, absolutely. I just enjoy planning events. Currently, I do work part-time doing event planning for my clients in Seattle. And so if they need a birthday party to be planned for their kids, I'm willing to do that. Or if it's something that's bigger scaled, if they want me to plan a gala for their event, I'll do that. And I remember planning this gala for their company's end of the year. They wanted to do something bigger than a party. So that was really fun to do and to coordinate everything from decor. What kind of food did they want? They wanted it to be winter themed and the colors to be blue, black, and white. So I made sure even the tiniest details from the napkins on the table to be those colors and the centerpieces at each table and dress code and reservation. So yeah, it was fun.
So I get exactly what you're talking about when it comes to getting detail oriented in terms of colors. It's the same process basically as designing a website or designing a print graphic. You have to really fine tune every single little detail, make sure that the colors on even the smallest of accents line up with the overall branding and color scheme. And in your case, it has to do with the colors of the Vietnamese flag, which are yellow and red. You wanted to make sure that that was incorporated into every single little element that you could think of. There's a lot of little elements that go unnoticed at times, but even then, it's important to make sure that those unnoticed elements follow that color scheme. There should be no inconsistency. In the corporate world, color is often established as part of branding, such as, for example, we all know that Coca-Cola uses red and white, or that Home Depot uses orange and white. Examples like that. Color is a major part of branding.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's why if anyone out there is interested in planning events for their small business, I feel like it's so important. If you want to do a market about, let's just say, empowering women, that's your main segment market that you want to reach, or the audience that you want to go to your small business event, then what are the colors that you want for it? Do you want it to be, I don't know, if you're going to do it around the time of Valentine's Day, are you going to make it a Galentine's Day theme where it's white, red, and pink? Or especially if it's a cultural event, because I have experience of planning that culture show, you have to make sure that every little detail is culturally sensitive and it's portrayed culturally accurately if you're doing events for your small business. And if your small business is tied to the culture that you are and what you represent. Because my old supervisor, Jaira, she has her own small business called JI Designs. So shout out to her company. And she sells jewelry, but she always integrates names of her jewelry that are Filipino names because she speaks that language of her culture. And she integrates, I think on the Filipino flag, there is the yellow sun on it. So she always makes sure to integrate that symbol in each of the packaging of her jewelry. So even down to that detail, I think that's important.
And this is all very useful information for all of our listeners because a lot of business owners often make the mistake of not following a strict color scheme whenever they are trying to represent either the theme of their company or the theme of whichever project they're working on. And you give some really good examples. For everybody out there who's listening, it's important to remember, in order for your brand to truly be memorable or for the theme of the event that you're planning to truly stand out, convey its message, make sure that you are this detail oriented, paying attention to what colors you're using, and make sure they're used in appropriate places and never go overboard or go beyond your color scheme. Like I mentioned with corporate branding, they stick to only a few colors and you almost never see them go outside of that color scheme anywhere except in special circumstances. You see these colors on their website, their marketing materials, on their social media graphics, and other related materials. In general, going back to your expertise, we are going to talk about how live music in general makes a huge impact on an event, but you've also shared some really interesting key takeaway points to our listeners about colors and themes. And I just want to say thank you for sharing that with everybody because I do see a lot of common mistakes made when it comes to this. Yeah. And we don't want to see small businesses repeating these same mistakes over and over again because that alone will not only kill any events that they're holding, but it'll just look unprofessional on their part.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely agree with you, Christian. Thank you so much for that compliment. Really appreciate it. And honestly, if any small business still wants to plan an event, they can, but make sure that you always have a consistent logo so people can tie or associate your brand with that, or they know, okay, that's that person's small business brand. Because in my opinion, they're allowed to do any colored theme they want for their event as long as it ties in with a theme. However, making sure that on all of their flyers or social media posts, okay, people can see that logo in the top right corner of their Instagram posts or their Instagram videos or TikToks. Just keeping that logo consistent and even a mission statement or a slogan to attach to that as well. I think that's so important.
Yes, I agree. In order for the brand to become memorable, you do have to use it consistently where everybody can see it. it and stick to one logo. Even large corporations make the mistake of always having multiple logos to represent their brand, and they don't use them consistently. So consistency is key in any branding for large corporations or small businesses. But small businesses need to grow, but they will never grow if they don't have that memorable brand. When you're out there creating your brand or you're working with your branding agency to develop your brand, make sure it is truly something that people remember. Now let's discuss live music. Now, live music can make or break, as I mentioned earlier, any major event, whether it's for a small business or a large corporate event. It can really add to the atmosphere. But, this is your area of expertise, and you've been performing for several audiences at different events. Please tell us how live music truly makes a major difference in any type of professional event, versus one that doesn't.
Yeah, so if it's music for a small business, for example, I'm going to tie it back to my friend Jaira, her jewelry small business. If the theme is all about her Filipino culture, then play Filipino music. Let that be represented, because naturally she's going to attract a lot of people at the event who are also of Filipino or Asian heritage, or people that are just curious about the Filipino heritage and her jewelry and how that really ties into her brand. Or if it's more of a corporate event that I'm going to be performing at, I'm going to make sure to do music that adheres to what the audience likes. So I might ask the event planner, hey, can you send out a poll to all of your employees that's going to this corporate event and ask what type of music they like? And then I'll try to integrate that into my set list. If they want to hear 80s pop, I'm going to be doing 80s pop. But I think a big rule of thumb for me, if there's any live music at a corporate event, to make sure that your music doesn't have any profanity, just inappropriate language, anything just disrespectful, racist, or inappropriate. Because there's some music out there that's really like that, and it's not cool, especially in a corporate setting, to do that. And I also apply this mindset to a more small business event. However, for small business events, I feel like the type of music would be okay if there's some swear words here and there, because it's more of a casual setting versus something that's more corporate, where the music should sound still fun but tasteful. And if it's more of an end of the year gala, like I talked about earlier, then yes, everyone's going to want the upbeat dance music, because they just want to celebrate all of their hard work they've done at their job. Or if it's a more intimate, smaller corporate event, then maybe I would be singing more jazzy, just slower, calm pop music just behind, just during intermission, or just like a little bit behind the scenes or something like that. And also, when you listen to music live, you can just feel the energy of the band or the singer in the room. It's so different when you hear music that's being played from the speakers. It just doesn't hit the same, because you can see the drummer like jamming out with his drumsticks. You can see the guitars. You can hear the vibrations of the music all around the walls, all around the floor, through your feet. So that would be the difference between playing music on speakers versus live music at different events, such as small businesses or corporate events.
I've been to a few different events over the years, and one thing that I've noticed is that none of them ever have an actual live singer there. It's always music playing over a speaker, and it just does not have the same effect. And another thing I'd like to throw out there, for anybody out there who has never done an event before and wants to do it for the first time, if you're going to have a high profile singer, like yourself, then before you even show up and get on stage and they're the ones providing the equipment, make sure you test out your equipment. Do a test run by just talking into the microphone. Make sure all of your equipment is in working order. You don't want to take any chances, especially if the singer goes up there and then all of a sudden something's not working here or something's not working there. Make sure everything is in working order. Too many people neglect to do this.
Yeah, Christian, I thank you so much for highlighting that. That is one of my personal pet peeves, and I feel like it's bare minimum to accommodate to the artist or band or singer that's going to be at your event. Making sure that there's an AV tech team to accommodate them and have them do a mic check right like an hour before, even weeks before your event, or the day before and the day of. I feel like that's just so important, because I've gone through some experiences where, oh no, the karaoke track just cut out in the middle and I had to restart the song, and I didn't really do a sound check with them beforehand. So really accommodating to your performers in that way, it really makes artists like me really happy. But that's also bare minimum to do as well. I feel like that's to be expected. or should be expected.
And that's a problem that you would not face if you had an actual live band doing the instrumentals instead of using a karaoke backing track playing over a speaker.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think even for a band, it's good to do sound check because there's a term in the music world called mixing, and you have to make sure that all of the sounds in the band are balanced. Like the lead singer has to be the one that's the most heard because they are carrying the song, but the rest of the band, they have to make sure the bass line is not sticking out, the guitar is not sticking out. Everyone's just perfectly blended together when they're doing the instrumental of the song.
Yes, you're right. Mixing is very important. I've had my interactions with audio equipment in years past, very limited interactions, I should say, and I do know that it is very important to make sure that when you're at that mixing board, all of the volume levels for the different sections are set appropriately. Like you said, whoever's singing should have the highest volume versus the instrumentals. You want to make sure that the words can be heard, that people can hear them. And again, all these little things in the end all add up. Together, they create the atmosphere. So having the volume set appropriately will have a major impact on the overall setting of the room. People want to be able to enjoy the song that they're hearing. They don't want to be, covering their ears and screaming that, oh, it's too loud, I can't hear. That would be a chaotic event.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's actually, in particular spaces, from my experience event planning, you can't go over a certain amount of decibels if you invite an artist or a DJ to perform at your event, because otherwise, like you said, you don't want to blow people's ears out. And once again, accommodating to your guest artist or band or DJ is so important because you want to maintain a good relationship with them. I've learned that's another big aspect of event planning, especially if anyone is watching this or listening to this right now and you have a small business, making sure that you maintain good relationships with your guest artist to ensure that they'll come around the next time you have an event. Because the worst thing that you can do is to forget to give them a sound check or a rehearsal or test run at your event, and then they just don't want to come back because they're like, oh no, this event host didn't really accommodate to my technical and audio needs. There's no point in me coming back. So yeah.
Word of mouth marketing is one of the best ways for any small business to get referrals. So you'll want to make sure that you do a stellar, extraordinary, beyond 5-star job the very first time, because if they like that experience, they're just going to tell the world about you. But conversely, they can also make it go viral that you're terrible if you mess up that first time. So with any type of business, it's very, very important to make sure that you maintain a good relationship and that you bring your A game the first time. There's no room for cutting corners, especially when it comes to setup. A lot of these DJs that you're talking about are solopreneurs. They're small business owners themselves, and their whole business is built around music, setting up at events and performing. All I can say is to all the DJs out there who are listening, make sure that you do your sound checks regularly. Don't just wing it. Never wing anything. Make sure everything is in order before you start performing live. Don't embarrass yourself. Don't embarrass the singer that's going to be performing. And don't put a bad first impression on your client because, and I've said this many times in other episodes of BizCast, first impressions stick for life. People may be able to forgive you for them, but they're never going to forget them. They're always going to remember the way you treated them the first time. So if you don't pull off the job the first time correctly, or if you're rude to the client the first time you meet them, but then maybe you change yourself later, that's good that you realize your mistake and change yourself later. But the client is never, ever, ever, ever going to forget that horrible first time experience.
Yeah, absolutely. Definitely agree with you, Christian. I think reputation is a crucial thing to have, especially if you are deciding to want to pursue event planning for your small business. Small business as well is a public facing job and career. Also, being a singer like myself is a public facing job. So you have to make sure that you maintain a good track record in how you treat people, how you professionally not just show up for yourself, but how do you show up for an event and perform at that event with the utmost excellency, repertoire, and just making sure you hit, for example, I have to hit all my notes when I sing. I can't crack a note. Or like a DJ, like you said, they can't have one of their fuses blow out and suddenly something gets unplugged or some technical issue happens. But I learned that sometimes it can be a double-edged sword because the other perspective is sometimes that can't be controlled. I've planned some events where the DJ prepared so much ahead of time. He was on top of it. But then the day of for my prom event, there was one song that just couldn't play for some weird reason. And that was out of his control and it was totally unexpected. So biggest thing I've learned in event planning and in my music career is to embrace the unexpected and learn from it and just do the best you can in that moment to pivot and be graceful and professional about it. because the last thing you want to do is just be like, oh no, this song is not working. I'm just going to leave the stage. No, you're going to push through like a professional and finish that set list for that event.
So I would think of preparation like this, using this as an analogy. Think about amusement parks. Amusement parks, before they even open for the day, they have to test every single ride to make sure that they are safe so that they don't have any freak accidents later that could result in injury or death. They test the rides thoroughly. They go by several inspection points to make sure that each ride is running like a well-oiled machine to ensure that there won't be any harm later. So think of it like that. When you're getting ready to do anything, such as setting up for a show, getting your musical equipment all in order, test everything out, make sure everything works, so that way when the big moment comes and you flip that switch to go live, you don't have to worry about anything going wrong. There could be a few exceptions to that. There are things that we can't plan for, like maybe, I don't know, the power going out in the middle of a performance, but those are things that you can't control. My best recommendation would be develop some sort of procedure list that inspects everything related to your equipment before you decide to go live. Basically, a list of procedures that you would go by every single time before you even think about going live to make sure that everything is working. For example, before we even tape a BizCast episode, we always do sound checks to make sure that our audio quality sounds good, to make sure microphones are working. And as you know, Lexi, I have a story here to share. This is actually our second time attempting to tape this episode because previously my microphone was not working and I did nothing to my microphone. For some reason, it just decided it wasn't working. Then I plugged it into other computers later and I found out that that microphone, for some reason, just decided it doesn't want to work anymore. And now you and me are taping this episode now at a rescheduled date from our original date because I had to get another mic. So as you can see, that's an example right there of ensuring that you have some sort of procedure list that you go through before you actually perform live in front of people. If anything's going to go wrong, let it go wrong before the actual event happens. Let it go wrong during the testing period.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Christian. I think that's something that I've already been doing for years, is just making sure I closely coordinate with the PA or AV tech team to constantly be chatting with them. Hey, I need this aux cord for my mic, or I need this aux cord to plug into my phone so I can play the backing track that I'm singing to. So definitely, yeah, preparation is key. And my dad has always told me growing up, always be prepared. So I think that's great. But yeah, I've even encountered some moments where even though I thoroughly checked everything with the tech team, and then there was the rehearsal on stage and testing out the mics and the sound and making sure that the backing track is not blasting over my voice, I've had some performances where I was like, oh, suddenly, like I said earlier, the backing track cut out early and now I have to restart singing the song. And like you said, like how this is now our second podcast taping that we're doing today. So yeah, sometimes life just throws curveballs at us, but all that matters is like, what do we do about it? We can't just like be complacent and not just do anything about it and freak out and let all of that stress get to our head. It's just best like, how do we approach those just weird curveballs that life throws at us, especially when planning events, as I've learned, because I've had many curveballs thrown at me the day of my events that was completely out of my control. And one of them, yes, like you mentioned earlier, is like the power was out for a little bit for some of our music. So yeah.
Yes, sometimes life does throw curveballs at us and it can create unexpected problems. We can't always be prepared for everything, but we can try to be prepared for every single scenario that could happen. But let's shift topics now. So earlier you mentioned this, but when it comes to corporate or small business held events, what types of songs are the most appropriate? Earlier you mentioned like jazzy music, but in addition to that, what types of genres and categories would you say are the most appropriate for any type of professional event that's business based?
For any type of professional event, I would say in general, play music that the employees want to hear. I think it's always important to accommodate. And that's a big rule of thumb for marketing, as you know, is to always accommodate to your audience, like locate what they want. And let's see, some corporate events that I've done, it's pretty much like top 40 pop music from 2000s. I know the age range of employees range from 22 to 50 years old. So thinking about what each generation of people like to listen to and really accommodate to that and sing songs that are in those different decades and eras of pop music. And sometimes sometimes it depends on the corporate event. Like I said earlier, if it's a smaller event and more intimate and they just want me to sing in the background just to add a bit more ambiance to the event space, I'm just going to sing something a little more slow and I'm not going to belt out as much notes. I'm just going to keep it low key. But if it's more something like a large corporate event or a gala, then I'm going to be definitely singing and belting my heart out to a lot of pop songs that they like and making sure to keep the songs appropriate and no swear words. Everything is just clean, pure pop music, just to make sure that I'm being sensitive to that because it's a professional environment. I'm not going to be singing songs that have profanity in it, obviously. And even for small business events, I don't really do that either.
And speaking of small business events, please share with us a story of an event that was held by a small business where your own talents made it completely memorable.
Yeah, so my friend Jaira, she is the event coordinator for Palenque. It's this Filipino-led organization based in Seattle, and they were having this event back in November, and she asked if I could sing 2 songs for it. And I said, sure. And it's funny because I was going to sing this song called Weak by SWV. They're an R&B 90s girl group. But then I found out that the other performer, Jill, was singing that song as well. So we had to do kind of like a rock, paper, scissors deal. And I was the one that had to end up pivoting last minute what song I should sing. So I sang If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys and then my original song called If Only. And it was memorable because it was in a hair salon, but they completely transformed the space where it was Halloween themed. You got to show up in your favorite Halloween costume. And as well, there was like Filipino food there as well. The decorations coordinated with their colors and it's the same colors from the Filipino flag. So I was just honored as a Vietnamese artist myself to really be part of this like Asian community in this event. And I was belting my heart out in a smaller hair salon, but it was very memorable in that regard.
And this was another example of life throwing a curveball at you. You didn't know that the previous performer had already performed the song that you already planned on performing. So, but the thing is that you handled it appropriately. You had a backup plan available. You knew what to do just in case that happened, even though you didn't anticipate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thankful that the other singer, Jill, she was just as gracious and nice about it. She wasn't like, oh, I'm going to sing this. You can't. She was more like, hey, like, let's flip a coin on this. Let's see who does or doesn't. And we were both supportive of each other the whole night as well. And I think that's another perspective to think about. If you want to hold an event for your small business, and if you want to invite multiple performers, big rule of thumb, make sure that they're not performing the same song. Because I did talk to Jaira just like for a quick minute. And I was like, hey, like, did you know that we were performing the same song? And I think it got lost in translation for her as she was event planning and she forgot to catch that detail. But she told me that she would make sure moving forward, like if I were to get invited back again, then she would make sure that I'm not performing the same song as the other singer. So yeah.
What I like about this story is the fact that it's a perfect example of one where everybody can learn from, but it also had a happy ending. Like I mentioned, something unexpected happened. You didn't anticipate the previous singer from performing the same song that you planned on singing, but in the end, you and her ended up becoming very supportive of each other. Your biggest takeaway was to make sure that communication is always open with the event planner, and the event was a success because you were able to bring it to life with your voice. That's the most important thing that happened in the story, but it's also what truly made it a very happy ending.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I look back at that event and I just had such a great time, and coordinating with, it was really the DJ who was playing my backing tracks for the songs. I was like, hey, sorry, I'm actually going to be singing If I Ain't Got You by Alicia Keys due to this mix up. And she was very supportive and accommodating and kind. She's like, sure. And I'm thankful that this mix up actually happened during sound check an hour before the event. So imagine if both of us went up there, sang the song without even knowing that we were going to do the same one. So I'm really glad that it happened before the event, like you mentioned earlier, instead of during.
Right. Like I said earlier, if anything's going to go wrong or fall out of line, make sure it happens during the testing phase or during the sound check, during the pre-production or preparation stage, not during the actual live event where everybody can see it.
Yeah, I'm really glad. Otherwise, it would have been awkward where she's like, because in the set list, she actually performed before me. So I would have been like, oh no, am I going to go up and awkwardly sing the same song? And then naturally, people in the audience would compare our performances too, because we're doing the same one. So I just didn't want that weird comparison to happen. And in general, for me as a musician, I'm very supportive of other musicians competitions, because I feel like that's just so important, especially when you are performing in the same event space, to not be like competitive with each other, but be more collaborative and kind.
And you're actually not the first person to tell me something like that. And I agree with that 100%, because too many people focus on competing with others in their field rather than being supportive. And in my field, instead of competing with other web designers, I think it's nice to actually collaborate with them, because you never know when, for example, they might have a project that they can't take on because they're too busy, or they need to bring on some additional assistance. So they could outsource certain aspects of that project to us instead of keeping it all in-house due to pride, thinking that they just don't want to hand over work to a competitor. When competitors work together, it actually fosters a much stronger business ecosystem versus one where people always have to attack each other and try to one-up everybody who's in the same field all the time as if they have to look better. Because, I mean, I know that we have to compete and we have to win over our customers, but when we can be supportive of each other at the same time and help each other out when needed, it only makes the business world a much easier place to work with. And in the end, it can be more rewarding.
Yeah, absolutely, Christian. I definitely agree. I think talking about event planning again, that's what I learned. I can't plan the event entirely by myself. There's just no way. And that's why I worked with the campus events board team that I was a part of in college, and like delegating tasks, like Kaylee, our marketing coordinator, I'd be like, hey, can you make sure to film these type of TikToks to promote this event that I'm doing? Or, hey, this other member of my team, Fernanda, can you help me contact and CC me in the email the mocktail vendor that I want for prom? Like, if I were to do everything by myself, I would be literally pulling my hair out of stress. But it's always important to collaborate, especially in a team setting. And I know with Jaira, when she planned that Palenque event that I sang at, she also had the rest of the team to lean on and to carry some of the weight that she just couldn't, because she was more prioritizing just planning the event, but maybe she needed help contacting vendors or decorating the space.
Communication is key in collaboration. You can't have one without the other. And there's no I in team either. Those are the two most important things to remember. When you're part of a major group, like you were in that example, you have to make sure that everybody is on the same page over what everyone's doing, because if there's no communication, it can create a lot of chaos where the project just ends up not coming to fruition because people were not contributing properly or they didn't know what others were doing. Everybody has to work together. I've learned this over many years of being in business, and also even further back when I was a student in school. I still remember back when I was in college at AI, the Art Institute. It was a 3-person group. We were building a WordPress website as part of our project. Me and one other group member were the only two who got anything done. The third person disappeared from our group when it was time to turn in the project. And then I also remember back in high school when I was in a class, we were all supposed to contribute a portion of an entire project. And I brought my portion in, 2 other guys brought in their portion, but then this one person didn't show up. And we made sure to cross his name off the list of members in the group because he didn't bring his portion. We didn't want him to get any credit. So that was on him. In the end, it's always important to make sure that people do their part and communicate properly. Want to avoid any trouble later.
Yeah, I definitely agree, Christian. I have also been through similar experiences in my college classes where one person just disappears for no reason and they don't communicate. But I've also had really great team members if they say, hey, sorry, I'm really slammed this week because I have personal family issues at home, but I'm going to try my best next week to catch up on what I can. Great. That's better than saying absolutely nothing and just disappearing out of thin air. Well, not literally out of thin air, like a magician's trick, but just being proactively communicating. Because one of the things that my supervisor said in college was it's better to over communicate than under communicate. Like you can't leave just nothing empty or anything unsure about that someone else would be like, oh, they didn't tell me this. They didn't tell me that I should have posted this on Instagram, or, oh, this event planner didn't tell me to set up my mocktail station at the right corner of the venue space. So tying back to what we were talking about earlier, being detailed in communication is very important as well.
Exactly. Especially when it comes to working in the corporate world too, or as a business owner and you're talking to clients. Sometimes you have to be upfront with them about certain things so that way they aren't a mystery later. For example, clients often wonder, when will my new website start ranking on Google? And I'm always upfront with them. I always tell them it's not something that's going to happen overnight, and it's probably not something that's going to happen within the first few months. That's something that takes a very, very long time to happen, sometimes even years. And that's especially true if you're in a cutthroat area in an extremely saturated market like Houston. You see what I mean? You will have to give it time to go against the already established businesses who have been out there for a while. See, that's just an example of something you have to be upfront about so that clients don't come back to you later. You have to tell them, you can't promise them that it's going to start booming overnight. You've got to be realistic and let things go with the flow, basically.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. My manager tells me this too. He's like, you always have to set your expectations early on with somebody. Like when I was piecing together my band that I now have, I literally told him, I was like, hey, my manager and I, we're going to have a call with you. We're going to basically do like the equivalent of the corporate world, a screening, like a call with you just to feel out, are you the right fit to be my guitarist or drummer? Because I literally told them very clearly, there's multiple candidates applying for this drummer role. Like I don't want to make them think early on, okay, you got the role. And then I find out later that they're actually not the right fit. So definitely being transparent in communication and setting your expectations early. And like you said, setting those expectations early with your clients and being realistic as well.
Your manager sounds like a very level-headed person because let me tell you, before I started CDG, I worked at some other companies. None of my managers were realistic at all. They just had this ridiculous belief that you had to be better than God at your job or you're just terrible at it and should be fired. And they would just micromanage and nag on you for the smallest of things. And even when you try to explain to them why it can't be done that way, with logic, explaining exactly why it can't be done, give it reasoning, and they just tune out the reasoning and say, I don't want to hear it. Get it done.
Yeah, that's very just arrogant of them, very inconsiderate. And yeah, my manager, fun fact, he's actually also my father. And he's had a similar career path as you where he's done years of marketing and project coordination and project management experience. So he knows the flip side of dealing with just unfair corporate culture like that. And so, but that's one of the things that my dad has learned in his career in marketing is like always set your expectations early, whether you're coordinating or managing a project. My dad said event planning is literally that and managing my music career.
Yes, that's right. Your dad knows how to manage people and he understands the industry very well. He sounds like a very reasonable person that anybody who worked for him would probably enjoy it because he wouldn't go after them and complain about little things that can't be done a certain way. He uses logic, basically. He understands why certain things can't be done, and he expects everybody else to be realistic as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I think another thing that my dad has taught me too, because my dad, he's had interns at his company, and he's always giving them grace because he knows that they're just interns learning about marketing. I feel like a lot of times when managers hire interns, they expect intern to know the complete ins and outs of marketing, the complete way to do a SWOT analysis on a product. Like my dad, I've seen the way that he communicated with interns, and it's always coming from a very kind and considerate but professional place. He still sets those expectations firm, but it's not like those unfortunate managers that you've got, Christian, in the past where they're like, you just need to do this for me. My dad will be like, hey, like, how can I meet you where you're at? And I feel like that's so important to do, especially in the corporate world.
And unfortunately for me, when I was an intern at a small company that specialized in digital marketing back in 2013, yeah, I know, a long time ago, time flies, but when I was there, over a decade, yeah, and I still remember it like yesterday. When I worked there, I had one of those arrogant boneheads too. He didn't really care if you were an intern. He was just ridiculous with his expectations, and if you tried to explain why certain things couldn't happen, he just didn't want to hear it. He just really believed that everybody should be perfect, and not everybody can be perfect. I mean, he wasn't perfect. He was rude. He was insulting, and I found it rather hypocritical that he always talked about God, especially since I know for a fact God would never be this rude or nasty to someone like he always was to all of his employees.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate that you went through that. And that expectation is just impossible for you at the time when you were an intern to try to fulfill. So yeah, that sucks. For sure.
Yeah, I know. It was unfortunate, and I'll be discussing these stories in more detail when I get to take the episode on business sins, being a bad boss, or whatever I decide to title it. That is an episode I propose later on, and just at the time of this taping, I don't have a scheduled date for it, but I am going to delve into that more. But, going back to the small business world, my final question for you is, what advice would you give small business owners who are considering holding events to help them gain exposure? So this focuses specifically on what should they consider if they want to hold an event to ensure that it truly is a blast based on your expertise and your experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a few points. Point number one, collaborate with other small business owners in your area that share the same niche as you. So for example, if you sell candles, like scented candles, collaborate with another small business that does that as well. And then plan that event together, because that's when you'll start to attract not only their audience, they will attract your audience as well. well. Cross collaboration, as we talked earlier, is a powerful way to really market your small business and as well as market your event. My second point that I also made earlier, make sure that you have a really strong, distinctive brand logo that is shown throughout your promoting and marketing your event, all to the down to the little details. If your brand logo colors are white, pink, and green, make sure to have that integrated in all of your flyers and your social media posts or your email marketing campaigns for every event that you have. Another point that I'd like to say is have a strong theme or a strong purpose for your event. So you can't just say, oh, yeah, so I'm going to be collaborating with the other small business that sells candles and you guys are just going to show up. No, please provide the details for people to want to come to your event. So say, oh, we're also featuring a guest speaker who has built her small business and now she's collaborating not just in Seattle, but she's collaborating with other small businesses outside of there. Learn how to do that. And that's when you know, okay, for this event, we're definitely going to attract the type of audience that is also interested in pursuing a small business. Or another advice I'd say is live music. Have that aspect as well. Like we talked about earlier, having a live singer or a band or a DJ there makes it way more memorable and impressionable and interesting versus playing music on the speakers, where like you said, Christian, it can be quite lackluster for the event and not keep everyone's spirits high. And my last advice would just to be, don't work by yourself. When you're planning an event, make sure to lean on your team, or if you're managing your small business yourself, ask your friends or interview people, hire interns, make sure that you build a team around you to help plan this event because you can't do it alone. Have somebody handle the marketing, have somebody else handle the registration forms for this event and keep track. And what you're doing in your role is you're overseeing every little aspect of the event. Have somebody else take care of the decorations, have somebody else spearhead and lead the type of food or drinks that will be there. Make sure that somebody in the marketing team is sending out polls. That'll be my last tip as well. Sending out polls of what everyone wants for the next event. So if you had a very successful indoor flea market event for your small business and you invited a bunch of small businesses to vend there, send out a post-event survey and ask people what did they like, what did they not like, because continuous improvement is an excellent way to keep attracting even more customers and a bigger audience for your events.
Those are all some great key points. And I certainly cannot stress the importance enough of collaborating with other small businesses, not only in your field, but even outside of your field as well. Show others in other industries that you're a small business, they're a small business, you want to help them grow. Because in the small business world, we really do have to look out for each other. The large corporations are not going to look out for us. They don't even look out for themselves because they're all competing. But as small businesses, we want to really help you grow. As a digital marketing company ourselves, CDG, we want our websites and all of the other materials that we provide to our clients to make sure that they stand out, that they're not just another face in the crowd, that they are truly different. Now, don't get me wrong. At the same time, it doesn't hurt to be where your competitors are. You want to be where your competitors are because that's where your customer is looking. An example, I was talking about this with some other people earlier. Think about fast food restaurants. Have you ever noticed that fast food restaurants are always gathered in one block? No matter what city or neighborhood you're in, they're always gathered around in one block, all the competing ones.
Oh, that's an interesting point. Yeah, I didn't realize it until you mentioned it. Yeah.
Growing up, I lived in a neighborhood where almost every fast food restaurant you could think of was on one block, on one corner. There was a McDonald's on the corner. Right next door was Long John Silver's. Right across the street was Burger King and Subway. Opposite from Burger King and Subway, there was a Pizza Hut and an Arby's. And then just another block over, there was a KFC and a Shipley's Donuts. They were all gathered on this one corner. I call these areas fast food alleys or fast food districts. And the reason why they do this is because they're all competing for the same customer, somebody who's hungry. You know, someone who's hungry is driving down that street and they have all these choices. They're trying to get in their face and offer all these choices to them at once. Think about Target and Walmart. You ever notice Target and Walmart are always within blocks of each other? Or that Walgreens, CVS are always right across the street from each other?
Oh, okay. Now that you mentioned it, now I can see that. So it ties back to that same reasoning that you said just now. Yeah.
Right? They want to be where their customer is, and the only way to do that is to join their competitor on the same block because their customer is searching that area for that specific business. So with small businesses, it doesn't hurt to do this. If you want to hold an event where you call others in your industry together, it's basically the same principle on a much more personalized scale.
Yeah, that's a super good point to make. And I also want to make the point of it's also good to, if you want a singer to be at your event, make maybe perhaps split up the set list, invite other singers or artists to perform as well, from that same reasoning that you said earlier just now.
Right. It only opens doors for more exposure for these individual artists who are trying to establish themselves, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like forging connections and networking in that way. That's the Filipino event that I performed at that I told you about earlier. I got to connect with Jill, the other singer that was there, and then the other DJ that was there as well. And it creates a lot of opportunities for cultivating just a stronger community. And just because I feel like humans, we thrive off naturally connection and community. And when competitiveness gets in the way, it really unfortunately negates all of that. But when we should be striving for a community, and that's one of the best ways to market, really.
This basically falls back on what I said earlier as well. When we're working together, the business ecosystem is much stronger, and that's called synergy. The definition of synergy is the interaction or cooperation of two or more organizations, substances, or other agents to produce a combined effect greater than the sum of their separate effects. So think about that definition. The power of everybody working together is greater than working by yourself. Like I said, there's no I in team. So if you're working with your competitors, you're actually making things better for yourself. You're helping them, you're helping your company, and most importantly, you're helping your customer.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I mean, it goes both ways. They help out you, you help out them. And that's what it's really about, that type of growth mindset that should be honestly be integrated in a lot of small businesses that want to plan events or how to grow their small business. And like I said earlier, you can't do event planning or anything alone. Success is not a solo effort, it's a team effort. I think everyone's heard of this quote, but I love this quote. If you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So that's something that I always think about in my music career.
Right. And also, slow and steady wins the race, right? Because if you're moving too fast, you're making mistakes, you're cutting corners, you're overlooking important things. Of course, you don't ignore deadlines, but in general, you've got to take your time to make sure that whatever you're working on truly is perfected and that every single aspect of that project has been thoroughly inspected and ready to hand over to the client.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you, Christian, on that excellent point. There's this book I highly recommend to anybody, really. It's called The Artist's Way by Julia Cameron. And one of the most profound things that she says that still sticks with me to this day is if you want to become a great artist, it's going to take time to develop. Because for me, if I rush into my vocal lessons, my voice is going to be damaged if I'm not applying the right technique. Or I'm also taking piano lessons as well. So if I'm rushing through a piece of music and, like you said, cutting corners, I'm going to crash and burn so fast that now I'm damaging my own skills and how to play the piano or develop my vocals. Or even for a small business, if they want to start on that, like you said, it's going to take time. But as I like to always think, good things do take time. And if you rush, you want to get to that outcome so badly. And it's not about the outcome. It's more about the progress along the way.
That's right. Too many people just always want to live life in the fast lane. And that's always dangerous because if you live life in the fast lane too much, you're going to crash into another car, metaphorically speaking.
Yeah.
Now, but yes, Lexi, you've shared some great key points with us today. A lot of not only lessons about event planning, but also a lot of business life lessons as well. I can honestly say I've learned a lot of new things too. Thank you for joining us on BizCast today. It was a pleasure. Do you have anything else you would like to say before we close out?
Yeah, Christian, I just want to give a huge shout out to you for giving me this amazing opportunity to talk about my music career, event planning, and how to help out small businesses. I honestly think your podcast is going to be a really great resource for people in those type of niches. And it was a really fun conversation today. And likewise, I feel the same. I felt like I learned a lot about you from your experience, and I'm definitely going to apply that to the rest of my life. So yeah, it was fun today. Thank you so much. I'm really grateful.
I enjoyed hearing your stories and all of your examples. And like I said, I've learned a lot from the information you shared with us today. I hope all of our business owners out there will also take these key points and apply them to their business lifestyle, and everything's going to be just fine. But yes, thank you, Lexi. It was a pleasure, and I hope to have you on BizCast again for future episodes. You will be invited back for sure. That's certain right there. Thank you.
Oh, that's so nice. Thank you.
And I'd like to thank all of our listeners for tuning in today, and we'll see you in the next episode.